Hey everyone, I'm Amina and welcome back to my channel, Amina Inspired. So this week I'm talking about self-sabotage, why we do it, and more importantly, how to stop doing it. Okay, so self-sabotage is when we are close to our goal, like we're nearly there, and then we do something really silly and unnecessary, and it unravels and everything, and we move further away from our goal. And this is super sad. So just imagine you are in an interview, you know all the answers, but you just freeze up, or you go to an important meeting and then you leave all the documentation at home, or you're almost at your goal weight and then you just start eating like it's nobody's business. So this is what we call self-sabotage, because it's not an external issue, it's all something that it has to do with what is happening inside our brain. Okay, so I want to tell you that self-sabotage is fixable, okay? But the key is in the word self, okay? Because the reason why we sabotage ourselves is because somewhere deep down inside, we don't think that we are good enough to take that step further or that step up in our lives. And somewhere in our subconscious, we tell ourselves we're not good enough, and then we find ways of getting out of actually completing the goal. So self sabotage is 100% linked to self esteem, and without a doubt, it has to do with what we call self limiting beliefs. Now, self limiting beliefs are those thoughts about yourself that you attained as a child. So maybe when you were little, you were bullied or abandoned, or just you felt like you weren't good enough. In those cases, as a child, because you're not rational, right? You're not an adult yet, so you believe that all the issues, all the problems are with you. So speaking from personal experience, I was severely bullied for like 5 years, to the point where I felt I was completely mute. I was too scared to talk because I didn't want to be bullied. And one thing for sure, the voice inside my head said, you are not worthy. You are not worthy of anything, of like friends, love, hugs, just things that other people take for granted. And that took me into my 20s, and the 20s were rough. You'll see a video, yeah. It was rough, and I survived, thank God. And then I moved on with my life, and even though things seemed great on the from the outside, I always felt at the back of my mind that I just was not good enough. And so, if you want to know what your self-limiting belief was or is, just think, when in your darkest moments, what's the one thing that keeps on replaying in your head? Maybe it's I'm not pretty enough, I'm not cool enough, I'm lazy, I'm ugly, or whatever it is. We all have something. And I'm here to tell you that that negative self-limiting belief that I had, it's over. Like, it's so over, because um, I rewired my brain, and this is what I'm going to show you how to do. And you have to understand, it's a practice. You got to do it every single day. You didn't just get in the car and know how to drive. You had to practice it. Okay, so everything worth doing, you had to learn and practice regularly. Okay, so it's the same with this. Okay, so imagine that your brain is a garden. Okay, and a self-limiting belief is like a weed, and if you pull that weed out, you know what will happen? It'll just grow again. Another weed will grow in its place. So you have to pull out that weed and replace it with something positive, like the seed of positivity and inspiration and joy and beauty. Okay, so I took my negative belief, which was I'm not worthy, and I replaced it with something I found on the internet, which was never doubt your own worth. That was it. I took a screenshot of it. It became the wallpaper on my phone, and I didn't know that we look at our phones on average 400 times a day, probably more for me. And every time I looked at it, it was sending signals to my brain, positive reinforcement, without me even thinking about it, that I should never ever doubt my own worth. And over time, I started to feel a difference inside my body. It's unbelievable that words can change your life. But if you think about it, self-limiting beliefs are also words, and they also impact our lives, but they do so negatively. So, after a long time, when I learned the value of reprogramming my brain, I knew that I had to share it. It's the reason with you, and it's the reason why I'm here today. So I don't sabotage myself because I am extremely confident. I love the crap out of myself. I accept myself, flaws and all. And of course, I have flaws. Um, and I want this for you too. Because when you accept yourself, when you love yourself, when you are willing to give yourself 100 million second chances, you will not sabotage your dreams ever again because you are prioritizing yourself. That's where I am. That's a beautiful space that I'm in, and that's where I want you to be. So I hope that this video has been helpful for you. And please catch me on Instagram. I love Instagram at Amina Inspired. And we will definitely chat more. If this is your vibe, subscribe. And if you care, share. Much love always.